Good afternoon and warm greetings from Password Publishing House. This is Prasid, Product Manager, Password. Today is day 4 of our 5-day certificate program on professional excellence in teaching in connection with Assam Don Bosco University. We are really thrilled to see the response we have received so far for our programs. We are done with 3 sessions, and these sessions were led by Father Francis M. Peter, Mr. Binish K. Menon, and Ms. Jyoti Swarup. Let me thank all of you first of all for your active participation and for the timely submission of assignments related to the program. Just to remind you again, assessments form the core of our certification program in connection with Assam Don Bosco University. After each day's session, the assessment links will be made available on our website. It is there available on our Facebook page as well. And the deadline for submission of assessments is by 10 p.m. the very next day after attending the webinar. It is my duty today to welcome all of you to today's gathering. First, let me welcome the chief guest, Dr. Shakila Shamsu, formerly OSD, Committee to Draft National Education Policy, Ministry of Education, Government of India. Welcome, ma'am, to today's webinar. Next, let me welcome the resource person of the day, Professor Dr. George Kolancheri, to today's session. Let me now welcome all the participants in Zoom as well as all the participants who are watching us live on Facebook to today's meeting. Before I welcome the chief guest for today's inaugural address, let me introduce Dr. Shakila Shamsu for all of you. Dr. Shakila Shamsu was formerly Officer on Special Duty, New Education Policy in the Department of Higher Education, Ministry of Education. She has been the Secretary to the Committee to Draft National Education Policy 2020. She was also the Nodal Officer of the flagship Government of India scheme of National Mission on Teachers and Teaching, known as NMGT. New Initiatives of Leadership for Academicians Program LEAP, Annual Refresher Program in Teaching, ARPIT, and faculty induction programs were implemented during her tenure. Prior to this, she held senior positions such as OSD 12th Plan in Ministry of Education and Joint Advisor Education in Planning Commission. Her core areas of her education: planning, policy making, teacher education, ICT, and open and distance learning and inclusive education. Her academic career spans over 39 years in teaching and academics in the University of Mumbai and IGNOU, and over 14 years in the Government of India. She holds a PhD in education, gold medalist for Masters of Political Science, PG Diploma in Distance Education, and a degree in law. She has been privileged to be a member of various committees of the Government of India, state governments, UGC, USIEF National Selection Committees for Fulbright Fellowships, etc. She has addressed several national and international conferences within the country and at UK, Australia, Thailand, Singapore, Malaysia, and Nepal. With immense pleasure, let me now invite Dr. Shakila Shamsu, our chief guest, for delivering the inaugural address.
Thank you, Prasid and Password Publishing House. The key resource person for today's technical session, Professor Kolancheri, and the previous speakers who have taken 3 sessions and possibly had a very effective learning process both ways for those who presented as well as those who heard, and the participants who have joined in today. I think almost 3 months back, that was on September 15, that I addressed Password Publishing House session on NEP 2020 and covered the main features of the policy. Basically, at that time, the idea was of sensitization of all stakeholders to receiving the policy in both its positive as well as areas of concern. And I recall the number of queries and questions that was raised by the participants, which were shared by Password in advance, which showed that there was a lot of apprehensions in the minds of people particularly teachers and school administrators, heads of the institutions, in how they would be able to actually translate the policy into reality. I'm particularly happy that I could join the Password Publishing House excellent initiative of a certificate for professional excellence in teaching with focus on early childhood care and education, which has been one of the key recommendations of the NEP 2020. In fact, it is the pillar on which the entire learning curve is sort of sought to be maximized or optimized in a certain sense. And in that perspective, I also wanted to share the thought that currently we are seeing in this country and maybe in other parts of the world also, you have daycare centers which are run by usually by women with no denigration to them, that they are there at home and therefore they feel that they could take care of children, which is what they are biologically most adapted to do. And then as a consequence of running a daycare center, they graduate to become what they call a play school or a preschool. But unfortunately, the feeling that children at that age can be easily taken care of and their nurturing and their early learning can all be adeptly done by a woman just because she is biologically made out to be a mother, and therefore that role would be translated most effectively, is extremely fallacious. And that is the reason why we in the NEP 2020 and the draft report that on the basis of which the NEP 2020 was formulated talked about a very scientific manner in which the ECCE program needs to be conducted. And that is the reason why we are emphasizing on the foundational stage between the ages of 3 to 8 and talking about the playway method, the activity-based learning, and the igniting in the child, or the child is already curious, no doubt about that, igniting that curiosity in a manner by which the child will not do formal reading and writing. It should never be with a pencil and a paper, but would learn with joyful manner, with a kind of playway method, with the right appropriate toys and other teaching tools that can be used, so that the child is actually sort of created in an environment by which the curiosity is also answered, and all that at that stage you're doing is the neural synapses that are there in the brain are sought to be connected so that the child is sort of prepared for cognitive learning at later stages. Now, this scientific approach to early childhood care and education is very, very critical, because there is clear evidence that children who went to Anganwadis and where the focus of the Anganwadi system is on nutrition and health, the learning part of it has remained ignored because of the pressure on the Anganwadi workers, the system itself not being able to cope with providing the right kind of toys, the right kind of learning ecosystem, and therefore that child is actually not having the neural synapses in the brain being connected. And when that connections do not take place, then the child is unable to actually comprehend what is happening in a formal learning that starts from the age 6 onwards. So it is this gap that causes for a huge dropout rate we see in the subsequent classes. Now, I'm sure many of you who are assembled here as teachers are largely coming from schools which are not government schools, but non-government, in the sense you're either private or aided schools. And in these schools, there is an assumption that since the children are coming from households which are either middle class or upper middle class or elitist or the rich class, that there is actually an enabling environment at home, and that the parents are attuned to understanding how the young children learn, which again is wrong, because it is not necessarily that your economic status makes you understand how children learn. And it is this aspect that I'm happy that you all have started this initiative, though it's in a virtual mode, it's only 5 days, but you are having exposure to all these aspects. But the learnings that you may take from this particular program would require you to supplement that with actually going and reading a lot of material if possible. And I would also say that before you all actually start embarking on, I'm sure the current set of teachers would be given the responsibility in their schools to start looking at early childhood care classes also, if the schools are starting with that. But rather than embarking upon that and asking children to start learning ABCD, and please don't do that at all, because you are doing great harm. It is very anecdotal, but I have seen relatives, friends come home with young children, and then they'll say, sing Jack and Jill went up the hill and all that to that child who's about 3.5 years. And I find it extremely rude if I were to say that this is not what you should be asking the child to do. Just leave the child to go around doing a discovery learning. Maybe you might get some of your curios in the house destroyed or something like that, but don't ask children to start saying 1, 2, 3, 4, tables 2 to 4, and you reciting the poems, or the nursery rhymes and things like that. The child has to explore. It was there in a very ensconced womb for a long time. It's come out seeing the world, and everything that the child is seeing around is sort of a sense of curiosity. The teacher must actually just allow that to happen, the flowering of that curiosity, and then the buttering of that with the right kind of teaching tools, so that that child's curiosity is addressed. So if the child is saying, why is a bulb not to be touched? You need to say that that is a temperature, and therefore that if you touch it, you will actually get yourself burned. The child won't understand that, and therefore the child's instinctive reaction would be to touch that, because it is not able to understand why is there brightness along with the, and only the brightness is being seen, but not the heat that is being transmitted in that glass is being seen. Now, these kind of ways in which you teach the child, by which other children also try to, and mind you, that kind of peer learning that happens at that time is very, very critical. Now, it is also equally important in this age group to identify learning disabilities, particularly autism. And here you're seeing a number of children actually being autistic, but if we are not able to identify at that stage, then the kind of remedial kind of action that we can do for autistic children while integrating them with the mainstream children itself cannot be addressed. So the teacher in that classes can, let me be very frank, when I took up teaching in higher education, I took it because I found that much easier than going in for teaching young children, even if it was only primary schools, because it is very, very demanding when you're laying the foundation for the children. It becomes double demanding when you're looking at that 3-year-old child up to the age of about 6 years, and then later on the 2 more years that they come into the formal learning. Now, my earnest request is, after these 5 days of your program, not only do you need to do a kind of a training, but go into schools which have good ECCE classes happening and observe children there. Observation of children is very, very critical as a teacher in that age, addressing the needs of the learning needs of those children in that age group, to understand the various activities. And I may mention, because of my familiarity with IGNOU, IGNOU has a diploma in early childhood care and education, and I'm not doing an advocacy for you to do the course, but these materials of ECCE are available online, and we have inbuilt into that course a project work of 45 days. And during my tenure in the university, I have had about a sizable number of about 300 to 400 students who did projects where I had placed them into schools to do the observation of students. And since some of them were working, I did it for them for double shifts, so that in cities like Bombay, Pune, and Delhi, you actually have schools which have early childhood classes in both the morning and the afternoon shifts, and completed it within 25 days. Now, the set of activities that go into that, those activities are very, very critical. And internships are a project internship with an internship to a school is very, very critical for you to actually see on ground how these children learn at that age. Learn meaning the assimilation or the ability to assimilate, learning how to learn, not the learning itself. The learning how to learn becomes more critical. So I just thought that while all these sessions would be extremely useful, and the one that we are talking about, which Professor Kolancherry will be addressing in a short while from now on, the blended learning, where again, we are, because of the COVID and because of the fact that we are forced to use technology and virtually undertake learning processes, and which is likely to remain even irrespective of the fact that the vaccine may come in, but that age group of children below 10 being very susceptible might have to go on for a longer time, the screen time that children are going to be exposed to. And therefore, I'm sure Professor Kolancherry may be talking about it in this aspect of blended learning, where you are talking about borderless education beyond the classroom, using the technology, and the challenge both for the teacher as well as for the learner and the parent, because at that age, children will not sit looking at a screen unless it is a Tom and Jerry cartoon or it is something else or any of their favorite characters that they are able to see on the screen. So if you're talking about a kind of a technology intervention being used for the foundational stage of learning because of the current crisis, then the manner in which that could be very, very interesting for the child, where the child might not be continuously looking at a screen, but will be doing some activity, because in any case, the parent is going to be there. And it is therefore going to be one in which the child cannot be learning on one's own. Either the child might go off to sleep, or the child might do something on the screen of the mobile or the device that the child is handling, and therefore the parent is anyway there. Now, these kind of challenges also are things that you need to find out. See, mind you, many of these things have to be innovative depending upon the scenario into which we have been put. And therefore, let me not take too much time, but I'd just like to sort of summarize saying that you all have attended a 5-day course, but carried forward with readings, carried forward with observation of children in schools. Don't go in and insist on pen and paper or pencil and paper kind of a thing. Don't ask them to do the formal learning at all. Allow them to actually, if you are dealing with about 15 or 20 of them, allow each one to actually just let themselves go and identify the unique potential of that every child, diagnose children who seem to be different from the others, give them more attention, and then think that you are also in a learning process of dealing with that every single child that you're dealing with in that period of interaction with them. It is indeed a learning experience for you as much as for the system to understand what are the challenges of early childhood care and education. Look at literature on toy-related learning, on sports-related, because sports is also very important. What is happening is the child is glued to a screen, and the psychomotor skills of coordination and limb development does not happen. And children at that age must have their coordination and other abilities also being developed. So how would you do that without actually causing any physical harm, the safety of the child, all other aspects being taken into account? These are also things so that the cognitive, the affective, and the psychomotor learning all are blended together in a very play-based method or joyful learning method. I'm sure you will also do your own bit to maximize from the learnings that this 5-day course has given to you. And I'm sure uh, these kind of initiatives must be shared. You should share it and capture it as best practices so that there are others who may not be as fortunate like you to come in and join this course, but who can also derive the benefit from the best practices, where I would request Password Publishing out of their 5 days of this course to populate the best practices for others also. And since it's a publishing house, they can do it even digitally as well as in hard copy. I'm sure, let me wish you all the very best for the ensuing session and for their entire course. And I thank all of you for having given me an opportunity, particularly the Password Publishing House and Professor George for having spared 15 minutes of his precious time by allowing me to speak also. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for motivating us with your talk. Before we move on, let me remind all the participants watching this webinar live on Facebook to share this video so that this will reach to maximum number of people. And not everyone will get an opportunity to watch this live. So share this with your friends, share this live video, and let's share this and reach out to more people in your community. Now, let me introduce to you the resource person for the day, Professor Dr. George Kolanchery. Professor Dr. George Kolanchery has been an academician for the last 25 years with a PhD in teaching methodology, Master's in English, B.Ed, MBA in Human Resource Management. He has served as a Dean and Professor at Purdue University, US affiliate till 2017. He is a CBSE resource person for various topics like value education, experiential learning, stress management, library science, happy classrooms, and a wide variety of other topics as well. He has served at various administrative positions such as Dean, Principal, Director of Academic Programs, Research Committee Chairperson, PhD for External Examinations, etc. in India and abroad. To his credit, he has many international research publications and he has presented papers at international conferences in Malaysia, United Arab Emirates, Philippines, India, Oman, etc. He is a founder and editor-in-chief of Global English Oriented Research Journal, an international peer-reviewed research journal. Currently, Dr. George is working as a principal of Crescent Public School, Chalakudi. Let me now welcome the resource person, Dr. George, for handling today's session. Over to Dr. George.
Very good afternoon to everyone. Yes, today's chief guest, Dr. Shakila ma'am, and Password Publishing House officials, Mr. Paul, Mr. Prasid, Mr. Ram, Mr. Johnny, and all my dear academicians. May I welcome all of you to this session. Today's topic, as you know, it's a simple topic, but it's a very important topic. And what we are going to do is, we are going to shed light on certain topics like scenario after COVID, teaching after COVID, trends and perspectives post-COVID, and of course, blended learning, highlights, and overcoming the challenges that we are facing. So within 1 hour, we'll be trying to go through these topics. May I share a small anecdote for you? I hope it's visible to you right now. The lion and the gazelle. Every morning in Africa, a gazelle wakes up. It knows it must run faster than the fastest lion or it will be killed. Every morning, a lion wakes up. It knows It must outrun the slowest gazelle, or it will starve to death. It doesn't matter whether you are a lion or a gazelle. When the sun comes up, you would better be running. So this is the anecdote I wanted to share with you. Keep running. Keep running. I would like to grab this opportunity to thank Shakila ma'am for paving the path for me to enter into the topic early child care education. And I do appreciate Password Publishing House for taking up the professional development of the teaching community as one of their missions and trying to excel in that field. This is something extraordinary when we compare with other publishers. Thank you so much for that. Keep going. Great effort, great venture. As I said, we are trying to run, and we need to. And when we look at this aspect, we have two approaches. One is strategic approach, and second one is functional approach. The strategic approach is a departure from traditional methods because it focuses primarily on the organizational development and goals rather than on individual employee development. Second one is the functional approach to teaching, which I am going to focus on. It's a methodology which is supposed to allow the learner to function effectively and is designated as the user's needs. So out of these two approaches, strategic approach and functional approach, we are going to focus on the functional approach to teaching. In the functional approach of teaching, my dear educators, we tell that we should aim at the holistic development. That's why the National Education Policy, which Shakila ma'am spoke to you earlier. The National Education Policy is focusing on the holistic development of each and every individual. Now, what is holistic development? May I call out one or two participants so that this will not be a radio show, but it will be an interactive session, if you don't mind. If you feel comfortable, please switch on your video and unmute your mic. Is Nida ma'am, is the Nida KN? Nida KN.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Ma'am, please. If you feel comfortable, you can switch on your video camera. Otherwise, please unmute your mic.
Yes, sir. I have unmuted myself. Let me just try unmuting my video.
Okay, that's fine. See, I was mentioning about holistic development of every individual child. Ma'am, could you please share your ideas about what you mean by holistic development of a child?
So when we say about holistic development, it is the overall development of the child. It is just not focusing on education. We have to see about their thinking skills, their emotional development, even their character formation comes into consideration. Then we even think about their social skills, even their manners, everything come into account when we talk about the holistic development, not just book and pen, getting marks, write an exam and just score it. When we say holistic development, the entire development of a child in a pure sense or in a sense as a whole, the total development of the individual, the total contribution. I think the present education, what we have been doing just focuses on mark, pen and paper test. Not only that, the entire thing is included as I think starting from CCE that was introduced by CBSE. We have been trying to go on with the holistic development of the child rather than just pen and paper. I think we are trying our level best, and I think it is working to an extent, sir.
That's great. Thank you so much, Nidam.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yes. See, you mentioned about three major developments like physical development, mental development, and emotional development. And that's what holistic development is. May I tell you, if we call it as a definition, holistic development refers to complete development, which includes body, mind, and soul. In order to develop all of them, one really needs to do physical exercise, and holistic development is possible only by developing one's body, mind, and soul. So, when we talk about the holistic development, for an educator, a holistic approach includes recognizing and identifying, teaching, counseling the student, supporting the student, challenging the student according to his or her standards, encouraging and including children in their development. Generally speaking, a holistic approach supports intellectual, social, and emotional development of the children. And for this, what we need to do? I'm displaying a slide for you. We need to move out of your comfort zone. You can only grow if you are willing to feel awkward and uncomfortable when you try something new. That's why, you have heard about a poem, The Road Not Taken, where there are two roads. The traveler takes the road less traveled by. And that makes the difference. That only makes the difference. Here, what is important is we have to think differently. After COVID-19, the situation of schools will be from a teaching culture to a learning culture. The education's age-old 3 R's are there: reading, writing, and arithmetic. These are the 3 R's. Now, one more I would like to add, as I mentioned before, and that is rethink. We need to rethink, we need to revise, we need to revisit, we need to revamp whatever exists today. And the technology will see schools morphing into learning hubs. So, what we are going to observe, a major change post-COVID-19 is the schools in which a teaching culture is there. From there, we are moving to a learning culture. And you might have heard about a person called John Dewey. He is, or he was, an American philosopher, a psychologist, an eminent educationist. I think he was born in 1859 and he died in 1952. He lived for 93 years and he came up with a lot of ideas, revolutionary ideas in the field of education. When we talk about experiential learning, John Dewey has something to tell there. He told, we don't learn from our experiences, but when we reflect upon our experience, we learn. And here he says, if we teach today's students as we taught yesterday's, we rob them of tomorrow. Please read it once again. If we teach today's students as we taught yesterday's, we rob them of tomorrow. It clearly says, from his experience and research and his exposure to the teaching learning process, it says that we need to find new methodology and new strategies of teaching and learning process. Talking about post-pandemic pedagogy, the experts in the field of education, the experts in the field of psychology, the experts in the field of psychiatry say that there are three predictions for how our post-pandemic pedagogy will be altered. Three predictions for how our post-pandemic pedagogy will be altered. And prediction number one comes here. Prediction number one. May I call out one participant from here? Sindhu Anup, ma'am, are you there?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yes, ma'am, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yes. Ma'am, is the slide visible to you?
Yeah, yes, sir. Very clear.
Yes, please. Could you please read it out?
Yes, sir. Blended learning, also known as hybrid learning, is a method of teaching that integrates technology and digital media with traditional instructor-led classroom activities, giving students more flexibility to customize their learning experiences.
Ma'am, once again, what is the prediction number one? What's the title? Prediction number one. What's the bold one?
Blended learning will dramatically increase.
That means whether importance and relevance of blended learning will increase or decrease?
Definitely increase, sir.
Exactly. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you.
So blended learning, which is also known as hybrid learning, it's a method of teaching that integrates technology and digital media with traditional instructor-led classroom activities, giving students more flexibility to customize their learning experiences. And the picture shows classroom training on one side, the other side e-learning, and that is what makes the blended learning. Prediction number two, online education will be a strategic priority at every institution. I'm talking about post-pandemic era. So online education will be a strategic priority at every institution. What will happen? Management of online learning will be integrated into existing academic leadership structures and processes. It's not telling that the online learning will substitute or technology will replace. No. Management of online learning will be integrated into existing academic leadership structures and processes. This is the second prediction that the experts and the educationists have made. Now there is a third prediction. What's that? Existing potential will be rethought. I told you, adding to the age-old 3 R's, I'm adding a fourth one, that is rethink. And the educationists tell existing potential will be rethought. When you think about the big investments that school make, they are constantly thinking about three things. Number one, what's happening with the instruction in the classroom? Number two, what's happening with the operations of their school, and also learning beyond the classroom. These 3 points were put up in a global education conference in 2020. So these are the 3 points that the schools will be thinking when they are making investments. What are the 3 points? What's happening in instruction in the classroom? What's happening with the operations of their school, and learning beyond classrooms? These are the 3 predictions that they are telling. And the first one, and the most important, or sum and substance of all the 3 predictions, are blended learning. Blended learning. So, blended learning. May I know if someone can share their views about anyone if I don't specify the name, it's an open call to anyone. Could you please unmute your mic and speak? What do you mean by blended learning? I already introduced the topic to you.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Good evening, sir. Good evening, sir. I'm Nimi.
Yes, Nimi ma'am. Good evening, please.
Sir, I think blended learning means which requires the teacher plus student, then some sort of elements like which are there in this online. So it will be a combination of online plus offline. That is what I understood.
That's great, ma'am. Yes. Now, as the term goes, Nimi ma'am, as the term goes, blended learning, what does it mean?
It combines the online educational materials with the which we are already practiced, means the which is already existing, which was existing. So that will be a combination of this past and the future. That is what I understood, sir.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yes,
sir.
that is what meant by blended learning. Now
Sir.
we are going into depth to know what are the aspects. See, first one, we are going to define blended learning. Then we will be looking at the different aspects or components. Why is blended learning important? And what is the practical implementation of blended learning? That's the core topic of today. See, what's blended learning? The term blended learning is self-explanatory. Without explanation, it goes that it means a mixture of two or more things, as Nimi ma'am mentioned before. Blended learning means a mixture of various learning styles or models or types. Other words, we can say that blended learning is an approach to education that combines online educational materials and opportunities for interaction online with traditional place-based classroom methods. It requires, now please listen, very important, blended learning requires the physical presence of both teacher and student, with some elements of student control over time, place, path, or pace, speed. So what we mean by blended learning is the digital tools are complements. They are not substitutes for the intimacy and immediacy of face-to-face learning. Face-to-face learning. Now I'm going to show you something interesting, a small video I'm going to play. So please read the captions that are given and watch the video carefully. After that, we will be continuing. Is shown to you the image, hybrid teaching methodology. On the left side, please see, facilitators focus on three key areas. Number one, development of digital and active learning course content. Number one. Second key area, guiding the learning experience and customizing material. And third one, appropriate assessment. Once again, development of digital and active learning course content, that is digital. Second one, guiding the learning experience and customizing material for them. And third one is appropriate assessment, as it was mentioned towards the end of the video, that assessment is very important in blended learning. And downward, it produced an offshoot called flipped learning. Flipped learning, where the students are asked to read the content or the material at home, and when they come, yes, we are interacting with them. Now, on the right, three main components of blended learning. What are the three components? In-person classroom activities, bite-sized chunks of information, structured independent study time. The first one, the first component is in-person classroom activities. We told that the physical presence of the teacher and the student is important. Second thing, bite-sized chunks of information. The first word is very important. Bite-sized chunks of information. The size should be something that I can bite. bite-sized chunks. And the third one, structured, independent study time. It should be structured one. It should be organized one. And towards the end, the amount or blend can vary from session to session. So this is the small video I wanted to show it to you regarding blended learning. As you know, see, you can see the slide now. Elements of blended learning. Today, the blended learning is mix of following elements. Number one, trainer on the top, trainer. Second one, technology. And third one, content. So there are three elements which makes blended learning a comprehensive teaching learning methodology. What's it? Trainer, technology, and content. What's the importance of blended learning? Why do we need blended learning? We need blended learning because the ultimate aim of training or learning is to impact a change in the learner's psyche. More often in terms of behavioristic, such as defining, recalling, identifying, choosing, capturing, classifying. These are called the behavioristic aspects. Behaviorism, you know, it made great revolutions in the field of education. So what's the ultimate aim of learning? It's to impact a change in the learner's mind. And of course, blended learning can do that. To bring this change, we use or we adopt the most suitable strategy that sits at top three basic pillars. Three basic pillars are there. It's mentioned. For making learning strategy, three are the learning, content, and objectives. Now look at this. Blended learning provides an opportunity to move from the traditional, rigid, teacher-centered classroom to a more open, learner-centered environment. This is the most important impact of blended learning. It provides an opportunity to move from the traditional or teacher-centered classroom, teacher-fronted classroom, to a more open, learner-centered environment. And what happens in this one? In a learner-centered environment, the learner is being focused. The importance is for the learner, it's not for the teacher. Your fluency is not a matter. If you are unable to influence, if you are unable to change the learner's psyche, your teaching methodology is a waste. It's not going to create any kind of impact in the learner. So that is the importance of blended learning. What are the pros and cons of blended learning? First one, it gives collaborative learning experiences. Collaboration between the students and the instructor can increase substantially through online training platform. Then increased accessibility is there. It improves access as well as student attitudes towards learning. I'm talking about I'm talking about blended learning. I'm not just talking about the online education that is taking place right now. Blended learning, where the physical teaching and learning takes place and online classes are there. A mixture, a blend of that. Better communication will take place in blended learning. And successful evaluations will take place because we have got online and offline method. Now, the most important thing or the chunk is that the value in blended learning comes from the ability to create student-centered lessons that give students opportunity to practice skills they need to develop at their own pace. So a teacher if you want to become an efficient teacher, in the post-pandemic situation, you need to develop, or I need to develop, or we need to develop an ability to create student-centered lessons. We know there are passive methods and active methods. We are focusing on an interactive class. That's why I was picking a few names at random and I was trying to interact with you. And this should reflect in our day-to-day classes. Even if we are doing virtual classes, there should be an interaction. Students should know that their belongingness is very important. They should feel that they are part of that. Now I'm coming to the types of blended learning models. There are 4 types of blended learning models. You may jot it down. The first type of blended learning models, I may ask you at random after explaining this. So please be careful. The rotation blended learning model is the first one. The rotation blended learning model. I'll put it in a very simple sentence what I mean by the rotation blended learning model. It involves both face-to-face instruction time and online study time. Rotation blended learning model involves both face-to-face instruction time, that is physical classroom teaching, and online study time. This is called rotation blended learning model. Second type of blended learning model is the flex blended learning model. The flex, I'll tell you what it means. It is somewhat similar to rotation blended learning model. It primarily focuses on online instruction. So the flex blended learning model primarily focuses on online instruction, while only small groups or specific learners will have access to the face-to-face instruction. So the major part or the chunk of the flex blended learning model will take place via online instruction, but a small group or a specific learners team will have access to the face-to-face instruction in the physical classroom. The third one is a la carte blended learning model. When you go to the restaurants, we know that, no, a la carte. What is that? It involves only online instruction, but the training may take place in a physical classroom or lab, may supplement the instruction that the learner will receive in a brick and mortar classroom environment. That means this model, it involves only online instruction. It may supplement the instruction that the learner will receive, but the training may take place in a physical classroom. So the major difference is it involves online instruction, but the training may take place in a physical classroom. The last one is the enriched virtual blended learning model. The enriched virtual blended learning model. It means it is centered around face-to-face instruction, which is supplemented by online tools and resources after the instructor-led sessions have been completed. That means it is centered around face-to-face instruction, which is supplementary by online tools and resources. When after the instructor-led sessions have been completed, after the instructor-led sessions are completed, it will be supplementary by online tools and resources. So there are 4 types of blended learning. In a nutshell, I would like to tell you all these types of blended learning. One will focus on only online instruction mainly, but the physical classes with a minor amount of blending. Another one, the physical classroom percentage will be more and the other one will be less. Another model will be there where there is an equal blending of both the models. So likewise, there are 4 models. Implementing blended learning in your classroom. How will you implement blended learning in your classroom? How will you implement? We will implement it. Number 1, use a variety of teaching tools. Incorporate digital technology into your classroom lessons along with traditional methods of instruction. Some teachers in the beginning of the online classes, when COVID-19 scenario started, some people were very skeptic. Some people told that why should we take this much pain to learn all these features, because it will remain for only a few months. After that, we are going back to our traditional classrooms. But some people took it in a different sense, and they practiced, they learned different methods of conducting an online class efficiently in a very dynamic way, in a very vibrant way. What is blended learning? Blended learning says that whatever you learned in an online education system, or whatever you learned for an effective to implement an effective online class, is not a waste. You may incorporate the digital technology into your classroom lessons along with the traditional methods of instruction. Second one, how will you implement blended learning? Make learning accessible for students. Sometimes whatever we teach, it's not accessible to the students. When we saw the video about blended learning, we saw that bite-sized chunks of information, the information that we pass on to our students should be bite-sized. The information or the piece of knowledge that we are sharing with the students, it should be something that can be chewed by the students, that can be understood by the students, that can be digested by the students. And the third one, personalized learning pathways for each student. Personalize it, customize it, tailor whatever you are learning. Tips to design interactive virtual classroom training. Determine your goals and objectives before we prepare a lesson. Please determine the goals and objectives. Choose the ideal method of delivery. Which platform are you going to use? Is it only online? Or am I going to use an offline platform also to deliver this content to my students? How am I going to assess the students? Third point, creative interactive learning activities to encourage participants. It's the responsibility of each and every teacher to make the learning activities interactive. That is how we can encourage the participants. Otherwise, it will be boring. Develop a guide for instructors. If there are principals who are attending this class, coordinators, HODs, heads of the departments, you should develop a guide for the instructors, how a blended lesson should take place, how a virtual classroom should take place, and always give it a test run. The last point is very important. I'll tell you why. We will be using Google Form. We will be using different format for conducting evaluation and test. Sometimes we are overconfident. We prepare the test, we conduct it, and finally we come to know that we were unable to get the score from the students because maybe we forgot to check one box while I designed a Google form. Or instead of automatic score, I ticked a manual score. Or I forgot to assign the score for individual classes, or sorry, individual questions. So it's always very important to run or to have a trial run before you administer the test. Before you play the video for the students, please test whether it's working or not. Have a good rapport with the students. create a small team of 2 to 3 students and tell them that, yes, I would like to run a trial base and check. Then blended learning methodology, we are coming to the end of that topic. What is blended learning methodology? It can be called as a hybrid learning, and it's effective if the cases are analyzed well and other implementation, and their implementation is managed with a greater level of control. We need to do that. A few more tips given by Tucker. Again, another educationist called Tucker, Tucker. He told that start small. Start small. There are tons of technologies and tools available online. Choose one digital tool or technology to try when starting. Never go for a plethora of technological items or tools. Go for only one item or one piece of technology, something that you found new. Experiment when you start. Become comfortable with one before going on to another one. Feel comfortable. Be 100% confident that, yes, I can implement this one very successfully. Mistakes may happen. That is how we learn or don't give up. Ask students to help with the technology because they have grown up with that. That's why we say the children of today, they are natives, whereas we are migrants. So when they are natives, they know many things. And to reach up to that level, we need to work hard. That's why in the first anecdote, in the example of the lion and the gazelle, I told that it's not a matter whether you are a lion or you are a gazelle, but you need to keep running. There are different perspectives of schooling. It says that a school is not a paradise. We know that. But school is a place where paradise can be created. I'm sure you agree with me. The classroom, with all its limitations, it remains a great location for great possibilities. There is a program which is going on every Friday. The name is Pause. It is initiated by an organization called Mission Better Tomorrow. I'm proud to be part of that. It's initiated by Mr. P. Vijayan, IPS, the Director General of Police, Kerala. Its name is Pause. What does it mean? It means positivity and possibility. We need to explore the positivity and possibility in every individual. From classroom, we move to Zoom. From pedagogy, we move to panicagogy. That was during the pandemic. Now we are changing. Now we are no more in a situation of panic situation. Now we already overcame these situations. We know how to face. We know there are so many challenges ahead. So many challenges. May I call out any other participant? Shalini Shenoy. Ma'am, excuse me, are you there?
Good afternoon, sir. Yes, I'm here.
Very good afternoon, ma'am. Yes, ma'am, now I'm sure that you are going on with online classes, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Could you please tell me, when the online education was introduced in the school for the first time, in the initial 1 or 2 weeks or a month, what were the challenges that you faced? Just from your personal experience, could you please share with us?
Sir, there were challenges from all sides. First of all, we as teachers, we were apprehensive. Like, can I do it? That was the first question that came to my mind, as a teacher. Will I be able to deliver classes well online? Because we have never done that before. Students also felt that they will not be assessed properly. Okay, just come to the class, attend class, that's it. Parents had their own reservations. But I think we overcame all these things. And like how you said, the blended concept, the second one that you said, is very applicable during pandemic situation. You spoke about 4 types. The second one I feel can be the flex blended learning model. I think that can be done now during the pandemic situation. If I'm right, sir.
Sure. Yes, I do support you, ma'am. Yeah, your views.
Yes.
Yes. Now there is no strict hard and fast percentage how much is to be mixed from online and how much is to be fixed from the mixed from the physical classroom. But yes, sure, we can go for that. Okay. Yes.
But
Thank
the
you so
major
much.
concern, just
Please.
a minute, just one point, sir. The major concern is, of course, about their social skills and psychomotor skills.
True.
These are the 2 areas where they might find, I mean, we might find it difficult in an
That's
online
true.
class.
That's true. That's true. Ma'am, may I ask you one more question? The challenges
sir.
that the challenges that existed in the beginning of online education still exist, or we have overcome that?
Most of them, sir. Especially you said that access, I mean, that has really improved. That wall, that bridge, I mean, we have built we have overcome that gap between the teacher and student. We are able to deliver our classes better, sir. 90%, yes.
Great to hear from you, ma'am. Thank you
Yes,
so much,
thank you, sir.
Shalini, ma'am.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank
Thank you. Yes. Now we are talking about challenges. What are the challenges ahead? I'm going to put a little bit of statistics in front of you. And a study was done by UNESCO, and the study summarized that after 1.3 to 1.5 billion students and youth across the planet are affected by school and university closures. 1.3 to 1.5 billion students and youth across the planet are affected negatively. These closures are impacting over 72% of the world's student population. Closure of schools has a catastrophic impact on society. And what's a catastrophic? The results of school closure have led to interrupted learning. We know that in the beginning of online classes, the learning got interrupted a lot. Even now we might be facing such issues. And poor nutrition. People did not find proper job. They were not paid. And confusion and stress for teachers. Teachers again started thinking, how will I teach through online education? I'm not a techie. I'm not good at it. Parents were unprepared for distance education, or they were not prepared for homeschooling. Challenges creating, maintaining, and improving distance learning existed. And there were gaps in childcare. Unintended strain on healthcare systems happened. We know how much every state government Ministry of Health suffered. Increased pressure on schools and school systems. I'm talking about the results of school closure. Increased exposure to violence and exploitation in certain parts of the country. Social isolation was done. Actually, instead of, when social distancing was kept, sometimes it was personal distancing as well. The people who were closer, they were put it into distance. Challenges measuring and validating learning. So all these are the results. And now in the new normal situation, new learning situation, what are the new perspectives I would like to share with you? The new perspectives. Please look at the slide. Go through that. May I call another person, someone? Divya Gopalakrishnan, ma'am, are you there?
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, sir.
Very good afternoon, ma'am. How are you?
I'm fine, sir. Thank you. How are you, sir?
I'm all right. Thank you so much. Yes,
Welcome, sir.
ma'am. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, yeah. Could you please read out what is visible on the slide?
Yes, sir. New normal, new learnings, new perspectives. Fewer kids will go overseas to study. Social distancing, little or no sports. 2-shift or 3-shift schools. Social distance may lead to some getting socially distant. Teaching versus learning will need figuring. A lighter school bag may become a reality.
Yes. Thank you so much, Divya, ma'am.
You're welcome,
Thank you.
sir.
Yes. So, one last point which was shown there, the school bag. You know, we saw that school bag, lighter school bag may become a reality. We know just before 2 days, it was shown on the TV that the government has fixed the weight for a specific student in a specific class. Like, for example, LKG and UKG, the total weight of the bag should not exceed 2 kg. Classes 1 and 2 should not exceed 2.5 kg. A student who is in class 5 to 6, the total weight should not exceed from 3 or 3 to 5 kg, 3.5 kg. And it has clearly been mentioned that it will be the sole responsibility of the school that the children maintain this specific weight of the bag. Let's hope all these things will become a reality, I'm sure, in the new normal. You know, you have heard of Sir Ken Robinson. He mentioned part of the adventure here is not just developing creativity in kids. Part of the adventure that we are going to take, it's not just developing creativity in kids, but thinking about school in a different way. Teach the children to think in a different way. The student should be able to think differently. We are not going to create a group of students who will think alike, who will talk alike, who will speak alike. No, let them think in a different manner, and we are going to have a group or a new generation with critical thinking, with positive ideas. Now I am coming to the real challenge that we are going to face. I'm talking about a few points which has been mentioned in which called DSM, Diagnostic and Statistical Annual Report of mental disorders. This is the full form of that, DSM. It has got different editions. So it says that the major challenge will be FOBA and FOMO. FOBA and FOMO. I'll display a slide for you so that it will be very clear to you. FOBA and FOMO. Generation Z in our schools today is a generation that has grown up in a truly globalized and connected world. Generation Z now, the new generation. These Generation Z, 25 years old or less than that, they faced with the cancelled exams, shortened school terms, postponed sporting events, and even delayed graduations. Now I'm talking about this, the period or the months that we are going through. They are troubled by two things. One is FOBA, fear of being alone, and FOMO, fear of missing out. These are two phenomena. These two phenomena that the children will be undergoing. Fear of being alone, because even now we can see, if we observe our own children, they have become introverts, withdrawing themselves from the community and getting centered into a mobile phone or a laptop. Another one, fear of missing out. They are just afraid they will be missed out from the community, from the family, from their friends. And education in the days ahead will have to address the loneliness of remote learning, as well as the distress of lost opportunities. So these will be, see, and another challenge that we are facing is bulldozer parents. Bulldozer parents. Bulldozer parents will intensify. This is again another challenge that we are going to face. What is that? We will also see emergence of more protective, more pushy bulldozer parents who will try to propel generation alpha, the children of current millennial parents, moving all obstacles out of their way to create a clear path for their entitled kids, making out as if nothing really has happened in the world around us. We know children will be suffering from FOBO and FOMA. And FOBA and FOMO. And what will happen? The parents will sometimes react like bulldozer parents, pushing the children towards everything, removing all obstacles. And we need to overcome these challenges. We need to overcome all these challenges. And the first method is personal counseling. In every institution, we are supposed to provide personal counseling. That is how we can overcome the challenge. This is one of the methods I'm talking about. The children will be facing stress issues, phobias, traumatic disorders, panic situations, and all these things are mentioned in DSM, Diagnostic and Statistical Report of Mental Disorders. Here we need to have a ray of hope. From impossible, we need to have a great leap to possible. Let's leave I am. The egoistic aspect, let's push it off. Let's make everything possible with our hard work. Tomorrow will be a new dawn. Blended learning and personalized education will take place. Distance learning courses may not be considered inferior to the regular courses. Artificial intelligence and cloud computing will enable MOOC. What is MOOC? Massive open online courses. Many European and American universities have already started the massive open online courses, and people can start that. Examination and grading will undergo a change. It will move from summative and formative methods. Chatbots will provide personalized help and guides like robots. And AR, augmented reality, will make visualization, annotation, and storytelling better. All these are the methods how we will be overcoming the challenges that are waiting right in front of us in the post-COVID situation. And as the Chinese proverb says, failure is not falling down, my dear educators. It is refusing to get up. Everyone falls down. That's not what we call failure. Refusing to get up. I used to tell my colleagues in the school and my students that fail, what does it mean? FAIL, it stands for first attempt in life. First attempt in life, it's not a failure. First attempt in life. And we know that whatever and wherever we fail, it's not a matter. Current scenario, we are coming towards the closure of the session. What's the current scenario? At present, our means and needs are advanced technology, increased complexity of learning content, competitive expectations from learners as well as their parents, competitive expectations. Geographical distribution of learners. Learners have been distributed to different places where the broadband is there, connectivity issue is there, net issues are there, less time and more tasks to be completed. And cost of the software that we are using, cost and the fees that we are, all these are means and needs and challenges that we have. But our students are our future. We should not forget the fact. Our students are our future. We need to prepare them to adapt and apply the skills they are learning to the tools they will be using. We should prepare the children to apply the skills they are learning to the tools they will be using. And today's learners are leaders tomorrow. Leaders today are leaders tomorrow. And it's quite fun to do the impossible one. You can see a beautiful slide I got. It's quite fun to do the impossible. I'm going to complete 1 year since I completed my Himalayan trekking in 2019 December. I had a lot of anxieties in my mind. Even my colleagues, my friends, my relatives, how will you do that? And I know that it was a big challenge right in front of me, but I was able to. I surmounted 12,500 feet and I reached the top. What I'm telling is, it's quite fun to do the impossible. Whenever you think of adopting the new teaching methodology, never feel that it's impossible. When a new learning app is introduced, never feel that this is impossible, this is beyond my caliber and capacity. Psychology says that an individual during the whole lifetime does not normally use more than 23% of his intellect, his caliber, his potential. And we need to fight with the impossible. If plan A did not work, the alphabet has got 25 more letters. What a positive idea. It's a positive thought. It's a positive vibe in everyone. Plan A did not work. The alphabet has 25 more letters. Stay cool. Never become discouraged with the seemingly smallness of your task, job, or life. Cling fast to the words of Edward Everett Hale. What he told? I am only one, but still I am one. I cannot do everything, but still I can do something. And because I cannot do everything, I will not refuse to do something I can do. So the key to accomplishment is believing that what you can do will make a big difference. We should never underestimate. And we know adversity is the grindstone of life. The impact and ultimate result depend on what you do with the difficulties that come your way. I'm going to give you a few examples and we are going to wind up. Beethoven, he composed his greatest works after becoming deaf. You know, great musician, Beethoven. Sir Walter, he wrote the history of the world during a 13-year imprisonment. If Columbus had turned back, no one could have blamed him, considering the constant adversity he endured. Of course, no one would have remembered him either. And we know about Abraham Lincoln. He achieved greatness by his display of wisdom and character during the devastation of the Civil War. Martin Luther King, he translated the Bible while enduring confinement in the castle of Wartburg under a sentence of death and during 20 years of exile. Dante, you know Dante, he wrote the Divine Comedy, the most popular, one of the most popular classics. John Bunyan, he wrote Pilgrim's Progress in a Bedford jail. What I'm telling is, I would like to tell you that any situation, whenever we are facing adversity, we can rise up like a phoenix bird. National Education Policy 2020 says that early childhood education is very important. Vocational courses are going to be implemented from class 6th upward. When a child is getting trained in different vocations, of course, we know that when they reach class 12, their confidence will increase. To an extent, they will be expert in one of the vocation, one of the professions, one of the techniques, one of the skills. This will help them to get settled in a profession, in a skill. And to an extent, this will solve the employability issues that we are facing currently. I would like to invite your attention to one slide. You should read from the bottom. Which step have you reached today? I'm asking you about today. Today means literally today and as well as other one, generally speaking, as a teacher, or the confidence that you are having with you. Which step have you reached today? The first one, I won't do it. I am not ready to go for blended learning. Second one says, I can't do it. I want to do, but I can't do it. Third one, I want to do it. Willingness shows. Next one, how do I do it? There is an enthusiasm which has developed in you. How do I do it? Next one, I'll try to do it. An optimistic note has taken birth in you. Then I can do it. I will do it. Determination. And finally, when you reach the step, yes, I did it. My dear friends, I did it. When I am standing here, I feel that, yes, I was able to touch the major stones of blended learning and the challenges that we'll be facing and how to overcome. Never give up. Never give up. And I would like to finish with the famous quote, "Ode to the West Wind" by P.B. Shelley. He said, if winter comes, can spring be far behind? If winter comes, can spring be far behind? If we had some bad time, Corona time, can we say that that's not a ray of hope that leads us towards positivity and possibility? Pause to positivity and possibility. I'm damn sure that we will be able to face all the challenges and we will be able to meet all the requirements. Thank you so much to each and everyone who paid attention to today's session and you were with me throughout the session. Thank you so much to Password Publishing House, who is doing a wonderful job in the field of teaching excellence, professional development. Thank you, Mr. Praseed, for hosting, and the whole team of technical aspects and all the educators, teachers who attended the program. Have a great evening and happy weekend. God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for helping us with another excellent session. Now moving on to the vote of thanks. First, let me thank once again the resource person for the day, Professor Dr. George Kolancheri, for handling another wonderful session. Let me thank the chief guest of the day, Dr. Shakira Shamsu, for sparing 10 minutes of her valuable time. Let me thank the entire Password team, the technical team behind, and all the participants. Before we wind up, let me remind you again, all the participants, kindly ensure that you submit your assessments on time. The link is already made available on our website. Kindly visit our website or on our Facebook page and submit your assessments. And without fail, please share this live video happening so that we can reach out to maximum number of people in our community. So thank you very much once again. And let's wind up with national anthem.
जनगण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल गंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तव जय गाथा जनगण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे